What's going on in America, y'all? Because what just happened to GloRilla has people seriously outraged, and it's not hard to understand why. GloRilla, the chart-topping rapper and cultural icon, was recently arrested under extremely questionable circumstances. And before anyone jumps to conclusions, let's walk through exactly what happened, because it paints a disturbing picture of policing, racial bias, and priorities that feel completely out of sync with justice. So here's the deal: GloRilla wasn't arrested because she committed a violent crime. She wasn't caught doing anything illegal. In fact, she was the one who needed help, because her house was broken into. That's right. Her home was invaded, and when the authorities showed up, instead of protecting and investigating the crime, they arrested her. Why? Because they allegedly found drugs in her home. But wait, it gets worse. According to reports from TMZ, GloRilla was not even present at the time of the break-in. Her legal team has since called the charges against her an outrageous miscarriage of justice. They emphasized that she had been away when the home invasion occurred, and despite that, she's now being charged for felony drug possession. How does that make any sense? Here's the sequence of events. GloRilla's home in a suburban area of Atlanta, Georgia, was reportedly targeted by 3 intruders around 1:30 a.m. this past Saturday. An armed resident staying at the house fired shots at the invaders, which caused them to flee. Thankfully, no one was physically harmed, but valuables, specifically jewelry, were stolen. Naturally, as one would in such a situation, someone inside the house called the police. But instead of treating it like a legitimate crime scene and focusing on catching the robbers, law enforcement started snooping around the home. Allegedly, officers claimed to have smelled a strong odor of marijuana during their visit, which led to them calling in a drug task force. That escalated to obtaining a search warrant, and they eventually claimed to have discovered a significant amount of marijuana in plain view and in a bedroom closet. Let's pause here. Weed is legal in many states across the U.S., and even where it isn't fully legal, the criminalization of marijuana, especially in cases involving Black individuals, has long been criticized as racist and disproportionate. And yet, in this case, the cops weren't interested in the fact that a violent crime had occurred. They weren't trying to track down the thieves. Instead, their focus shifted entirely to investigating the homeowner, a Black celebrity. And this wasn't just any regular visit. They brought in K-9 units, a drone team, and a narcotics task force. Not to catch the people who had just broken into the house, but to try to build a case against someone who wasn't even there when it all happened. It's giving targeted. It's giving let's find something to pin on her. By Tuesday, GloRilla, real name Gloria Woods, had turned herself in voluntarily to the Fulton County Jail. She was released the same day after posting $22,000 bail. Her legal representatives, Marissa Goldberg and Drew Findling from the Findling law firm, didn't mince words in their public statement. They called the arrest a disturbing reflection of how twisted the priorities of modern law enforcement have become. They stressed that GloRilla hadn't been home for days prior to the burglary. She had family staying at the house, family members who had to witness the terrifying break-in. These individuals acted responsibly and contacted police, expecting support and investigation. Instead, their call ended up targeting the very person whose home had just been violated. The statement went further. Rather than tracking down the suspects who carried out an armed home invasion, officers obtained a search warrant because they saw a small amount of marijuana. Based on that alone, they decided to charge GloRilla, who wasn't even physically present. And as of now, no suspects have been arrested for the break-in itself. Let's be very clear, this isn't about drugs. It's about power, perception, and prejudice. This is about the fact that law enforcement entered a Black celebrity's mansion and decided that the most important thing to do wasn't investigate a robbery, it was to make an arrest. It was to find something, anything, that could flip the script and turn the victim into the criminal. Imagine being in GloRilla's shoes. You're away from home, likely handling career obligations. Then you get a call from terrified family members who just experienced a break-in. They tell you your jewelry is gone, that someone barged in with weapons. You expect justice, support, protection. but instead, the very people who are supposed to help turn their attention on you. It's easy to say, well, there shouldn't have been weed lying around, but that's not the point. Marijuana, in this context, was a distraction. It became a tool to justify a questionable arrest. And even then, there's no proof it was hers. For all we know, it could have been brought in by the intruders. But none of that mattered to the police. What mattered was making headlines, filing charges, and flexing authority. The deeper issue here is systemic. Atlanta has a long, complicated history with policing, one that reflects both internalized racism and overpolicing of Black communities. It's a city that's often hailed as Black Hollywood, yet even its celebrities aren't immune from being treated unfairly by the system. And what makes it more complicated is that many of the officers involved are also Black, raising further questions about how systems of oppression can be internalized and perpetuated even by those within marginalized communities. Social media erupted after the news broke, with fans and activists demanding justice and accountability. The situation isn't just about GloRilla, it's symbolic of a wider failure within the justice system. Victims are being criminalized. Communities are being betrayed. And public trust in institutions continues to erode. Many are now calling for GloRilla to sue, not just the department, but the entire city. Because at some point, the system has to be held accountable for its actions. It cannot be acceptable for police to respond to a violent crime by turning around and punishing the very people who called for help. That's not justice, that's exploitation. Let's not forget, GloRilla is a young, successful Black woman who has worked hard to reach her level of fame. She's a role model to many, and she represents a generation that's tired of being treated as second-class citizens in their own country. The fact that this is happening in 2025, with all the supposed progress we've made, is beyond frustrating, it's enraging. At the end of the day, this wasn't just about some marijuana. It was about undermining someone's safety, dignity, and rights. GloRilla didn't deserve to be treated like a criminal when she was, in fact, a victim. Her family didn't deserve to be traumatized further by law enforcement. And the city of Atlanta needs to take a long, hard look at what justice actually means. What should have been a straightforward burglary investigation has now spiraled into a public relations and legal nightmare. And while GloRilla may have been released on bail, the bigger story here is how quickly the system turns against those it's supposed to protect, especially when they're Black and successful. So, what's next? We wait and see how GloRilla's legal team moves forward. We hope for accountability, for reform, and for justice, not just for her, but for every person who's been failed by a system that seems more concerned with arrests than safety. Until then, this story stands as yet another reminder of the deeply flawed realities of policing in America. And sadly, it shows us just how far we still have to go.